Cities from LA to Barcelona to Amsterdam to even Charleston, South Carolina have imposed restrictions or in some cases even outright bans on renting on sites like Airbnb. If that's happened to you, I'm going to tell you what I would do. Hey, it's Andrew Henderson, and it seems like in a lot of Western cities, and even countries in some cases, there is a trend among local politicians to come in and at the very least impose restrictions on Airbnbs, and at the worst to outright ban them. I've seen restrictions in various cities like you have to rent it for at least 30 days, or it has to be to only one different person a year, or you can only rent out a room but not the entire house, or you have to register, or you've got to get permission or get a permit, and we only have so many, and you've got to collect hospitality tax and lots of different restrictions. This is the backdoor way of getting rid of things that I talk about. It's the way that I think governments generally get rid of things they don't like. It's not by saying you can't do it, it's by burying you in paperwork. And so a few years I talked specifically to some folks that I was working with about their Airbnbs in Berlin. Berlin had come in and put some restrictions in place and they weren't happy about it. So what I told them, and what I would say to anybody who has an Airbnb where they're stuck, where either the municipality or the state or the country or even just the local condo board of your particular building says no Airbnb, is to simply go where you're treated best. Those are the 5 magic words I use time and time again. And if you watch these videos for a while, you probably guessed I was going to say that. Go where you're treated best. Now, how do we go where we're treated best if we have an Airbnb that we can no longer use for Airbnb? Well, I'm not necessarily saying you need to get rid of that property. First thing I would do is look at, can you take this short-term rental property and make some tweaks to it, i.e. 30 days at a time? If that won't work, then can I turn this into a long-term rental property? The challenge I have there is I imagine a lot of these places, like this was the case in Berlin, a lot of the places where you've turned to Airbnb, it was because you were thirsty for yield in a place that doesn't really have that much. Developed real estate markets like Germany, like Australia, don't really offer that great of yields. Every time I talk to someone from Australia, I can pretty much guarantee that their rental yield on their properties is going to be about 1 or 2% after all the expenses are paid. It's just not very lucrative. And so while I understand that real estate isn't something that you can just liquidate at a moment's notice, I understand that you don't just want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I do think that it's worth considering whether you're going into a deal fresh or whether you already own a property. Is this a place where I trust the local government to be my partner? Obviously, places like Berlin, Amsterdam, etc. are great tourist destinations, even if in some cases the government is trying to slow tourism down because there's just too much of it. So the tourism demand itself means having a short-term rental makes a lot of sense. The challenge is that governments get in the way, and so if you're in a place where people like to make regulations, i.e. much of the Western world, then you have to ask, can I really get along with these people? Is there going to be the next thing, and then the next thing, and then the next thing? I owned a couple of rental properties in the United States that I sold not so long ago. I would get things in the mail like, you're going to go to jail if you don't pay $100 because you didn't cut your grass properly. We measured it, and here's like a picture. And I would call the lawyer who was helping me sell the properties one time, and he'd just be like, yeah, that's what they do. They just send people out there to collect revenue. That's all they do. They just want to extract every dime they possibly can from you, and they want to regulate you in every possible way that they can. That's why I no longer own properties in the United States. And so I understand that people might think, hey, the United States, great place to have rental property, lots of infrastructure to support that. The challenge is, if the government's against you, if the culture is against you, then you've got to go where you're treated best. People sometimes snicker when I say, yeah, go and do real estate in Cambodia or go and do real estate in Tbilisi. We have people who do Airbnb in Tbilisi that are making amazing returns. And Tbilisi encourages it because Tbilisi doesn't have enough hotels and tourism is going up. And Georgia as a country is catering to grow tourism to people who either have big families or who want kind of that Airbnb experience or backpacker experience, or just that kind of they want something different, right? They don't just want to go and stay in a Marriott. They want something that's unique. And so Tbilisi is really catering to that. So you can hold your property in Berlin and be angry that the government won't let you do Airbnb the way you want, and you could turn that into a long-term rental, and maybe you accept that. But the people that I've helped and the people that I've worked with have the perspective that, no, I don't want to be investing in Switzerland or the United States or Australia. Let me take my capital and let me put it in over here in Tbilisi, and sometimes they make 12 or 13%. Not saying that's what you'll make. I'm saying it's a possibility. Now, I'm not the world's foremost expert on Airbnbs. I know a number of guys who are really into it. I'm the guy who doesn't even rent out my own personal properties when I'm not living there. I just don't want to get into that. But what I see on kind of a macro level is you've got tourism opening up all around the world. Yeah, Amsterdam and Venice and Berlin, and Barcelona, those are really popular places, but they've become so popular that even aside from government regulations, you've had just neighborhoods pushing back. I remember being in Barcelona a couple of years and seeing all of the signs complaining about Airbnbs. Be quiet, stop Airbnbs. We don't want this in our neighborhoods. There's just so much pushback, where in Tbilisi, it is a new thing. What's interesting to me on the tourist level is Iceland 10 years ago was a place no one was going to. And at the peak, they had flights going there nonstop from Kansas City, Missouri. That's like the boiling point of tourism. Now we've slowly started to see tourism to Iceland and tourist arrivals decline. People are moving on to the next place. You see more activity in Central Asia. You see more people going to Africa. You see more people going to all kinds of places, really. I mean, you've got not only a rise in tourists from the Gulf, from China, more Russians are traveling, as well as just more Westerners are going to more places. And so what that means to me is you no longer have to rely on the Airbnb game in developed markets. You can go to places that have a lot of upside potential in the value of the property. Look at Colombia, for example. I think a lot of properties in Colombia are underpriced because there's just this reputational issue that I think eventually will get cleared up. In the meantime, you can go and get decent yields in Colombia. Some of the buildings have a problem with Airbnb, but the government doesn't in most places. You can get appreciation on your property that you wouldn't get in a developed market. And then eventually, when the prices go up, and if Airbnb ever does go away, you'll be able to get decent yields based on what you paid for the property in cash. And so I think you've got two ways to make money there, whereas in these other countries, it almost seems like, hey, this is the only way to get yield. Where I live in Malaysia, yields on long-term residential real estate are so terrible because people, predominantly Chinese investors, view real estate as a bank. And so they figure, hey, we'd rather have money in this bank that we can get rent from than a bank that we get 1% interest from. And so therefore people have turned to Airbnb and dual key concepts as a way to finally make a few bucks on their investments. And so for that reason, I say go where you're treated best. You've got so many new tourism markets opening up. You don't have to be in the traditional places. You can go to places, you can be a pioneer, you can make a lot of money on both sides of the equation where your money is actually welcomed. Hi, I'm Andrew Henderson from Nomad Capitalist. I wrote this book, which you can find on Amazon, to distill a lot of the stuff we talk about in these videos and a lot of the stuff I've learned over the last decade plus traveling all around the world, teaching you about how to legally reduce your taxes, build your personal freedom, and create wealth faster. Definitely get a copy of this book if you want to learn more. Now, if you want to watch more videos, make sure you subscribe to our channel and make sure you click the notifications bell so you never miss one of our new videos with more tips on how to go where you're treated best. And if you're already a 6- or 7-figure entrepreneur and you'd like to put these strategies in place for yourself, go to nomadcapitalist.com and learn about how I can help you.